This program is brought to you by the partners of A Rood Awakening International. Help others find truth. Support A Rood Awakening International today.
In just a few days, Christians around the world will celebrate the birth of the Messiah. Now, we could get into all kinds of reasons why this is not his birth date. But instead, we want to give you some reasons why this time of year does have something that you can share with your friends. Because sharing is something that's always good to do when the Sabbath starts, at the end of the sixth day, and the sun has set on Shabbat Night Live.
Michael, it's going to be a great show tonight.
It will be.
Stand by, studio, 30 seconds.
Thank you. One minute's air, Michael.
Ah, thanks.
All right.
Thanks, Ellie.
Hello, Shabbat Shalom, Torah fans. Hanukkah is just behind us now, and tonight we are going to teach you some things about this time of year that you probably didn't know. And later tonight, we have a special guest teaching with Dr. Denis Otero right here called The Secrets of Hanukkah. Most people don't realize that Hanukkah, even though it's not a commanded feast in the Bible, actually has some very important prophetic significance to it for recognizing the Antichrist spoken of in the book of the Revelation. So stay tuned for that. But first, let's see where we are on the astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar right here. We have now entered a new month, the month of Tevet. We are on the first Shabbat of that month, and in fact, this week was the anniversary of the angel Gabriel's announcement to Miriam. You probably know her as better known as Mary, Jesus' mother, that she was going to give birth to the Messiah 9 months later at the Feast of Tabernacles. See, that's why it's impossible for Yeshua to be born at this time of year. He was born in the fall time. How do we know that? Well, actually, it's quite simple. And you'll find the explanation in the Chronological Gospels Bible. You'll see the explanation of this timing on pages 38, 39, and 40. It has a lot to do with John the Baptist and his father and when he was working in the temple. So you'll see that on those pages. Now, please welcome my co-host for this evening, the Director of Ministry Development for A Rood Awakening International, Annie Reed.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, Annie.
How are you? How was your Hanukkah?
My Hanukkah was good, because I learned something about Hanukkah. It's all about, we always read the story and I get something new from it every year. Mm-hmm. And this year, what really rang true for me was never giving up. Nothing is impossible. I mean, we see themes of that all through history, starting with the Maccabees at Hanukkah. They never gave up. They rededicated the temple, overcame impossible odds, and took back things for Yehovah. Then Yeshua was teaching about consistent prayer. And that's in event number 140 in the Chronological Gospels. He actually taught the disciples, the Our Father prayer.
Yes.
That was at this time of year.
Well, and not to mention we're almost at Purim in just a few months. And that's also about not giving up. That's the story of Esther.
Right.
So it's an underlining theme in a lot of these feast days. And it's wonderful during Hanukkah, specifically during this month, which is just consumed in paganism, to remind ourselves just of the beauty and staying strong and fasting and believing and in prayer and all things that are good and true, really.
I wonder if he did that. I wonder if Yehovah did that because he knew it's going to be winter. Don't give up. Spring's coming.
Yes.
Don't give up in the middle of winter.
Especially back then. I mean, the winters were brutal. The winters in Israel are as brutal as they are here in the United States.
Yeah, there's snow in Israel.
Yes.
I mean, there's, when they went up for Hanukkah, when you see in the Bible about Solomon's porch, they were going up there for Hanukkah. That's your clue. And, it might have been cold. It might have been snowing. So it was a cold trek to go up to the temple at that time. So now, never give up is also a good theme for this month because Israel is under attack. Even just recently, there's been rockets coming through and,
Well, there's a travel ban right now for Israel in the United States and honestly from a lot of countries because they're expecting terrorist attacks in the near future over the announcement.
Yeah, that's just crazy. So, which reminds me, our love gift, we have 1 week left.
Yes. So this month in particular, we did something different that we hadn't done before. And it was, we wanted to do it out of the goodness of our hearts. We knew that it wasn't going to benefit a rude awakening immensely. But we wanted to give back to the land of Israel, especially during this time. So for your donation of $50, you get this beautiful teaching from Michael on the manifestations of the Spirit, not the gifts of the Spirit, but the manifestations of the Spirit, which are completely different.
Yes, which I didn't know before that teaching.
That's right. So if you have questions or if you want to understand the gifts of the Spirit and the separation from the manifestations of the Spirit, this is the teaching. It's very easy to understand. He did a great job at explaining it. But for your donation of $100 or more, we'll include this beautiful gift. It's a necklace, and it's unisex. The chain is very unisex for male or female, and it's made from fragments that were landed and fired in Israel.
Yeah, from the rockets. This is actually pieces of Qassam rockets that were fired over.
And it has a little pendant on where those rockets were located. So the actual city that it landed in, and you'll see that little blue gem on the pendant itself. So this is for a donation of $100 or more. And then for a donation of $500 or more, we'll include this silver coin that has a menorah, a temple menorah on the front, and the landscape of Jerusalem on the back. It's a beautiful piece with a little stone cast. These are actually stones from the
foothills of Israel, or around Jerusalem.
Yes, and then also we'll include this beautiful rose. This rose is a beauty in itself, just beautifully crafted. And this was a gentleman's desire. He saw all the rockets that were being fired into Israel on a yearly basis, which they get about 300 rockets a year. So about one a day at minimum. And so there were rockets fired into Israel, and he wanted to do something more for the land. He wanted to do something more for the people. And there they only have 15 seconds to get to a bomb shelter. So we're supporting Israel this month in anticipation that they will have the means to be able to find safety in those 15 seconds.
Right. We may not be able to stop the terrorists. You know, they're going to do what they're going to do. And thankfully Israel has the Iron Dome, which is their rocket defense system, which will help. And will stop most of them from coming in. But occasionally, as we can see, I mean, here's the living proof right here. Some of them make it through.
That's right.
So, this fellow, it's the perfect example of closed loop recycling. He's taking the rockets, making something beautiful, and the proceeds go to make bomb shelters. Perfect. I mean, talk about fighting fire with fire.
That's right. So your donation in the month of December truly helps the land of Israel, keeps people safe. We know that the land of Israel is going to be in turmoil until the coming Messiah. But we want to do everything we can to save lives, to stand with Israel, to stand with the chosen people. Now, granted, we're all chosen, thankfully, because we were accounted worthy by God, which we're totally unworthy for his salvation, but we want to stand with them, and we want to stand with you in supporting Israel. So your donation will help fund these bomb shelters, and in turn a rude awakening is giving to them. And so we want you to stand with us. Again, it's something that we're doing sacrificially as a ministry for Israel this month.
Yeah, and there's only about a week left to do it, because it's the 22nd today, and this ends December 31st. So, and after the 31st, these will no longer be available. So if you're thinking about it and you'd like to give a year-end gift, that's another thing we're pushing as well. Because, we look at this time of year, what we can do to further the gospel more than we did in 2017. And we have plans to do it in 2018, but we can't do it without the funding. And so that's why at this time of year we say, hey, if you are available to give a little bit more this time of year, we would certainly appreciate it. It's going to go to good use. You've heard Michael talk all the time. We push things right to the envelope. He likes to push things right to the end.
We do.
We squeeze every little bit of promotion and resources, everything. Every penny gets used. Let's just say that.
That's right. And we're a television ministry. Our mandate is not to build bomb shelters in Israel or to have an orphanage. Our mandate as a ministry is to lead people to the gospel of Yeshua, of who he truly was, of who he represents. That's our mandate as a ministry. That's our personal mandate as we work here. That's Michael's heart. And so as a television ministry, everything that gets poured back into this ministry goes out to produce more videos, more resources, more teachings for others to see Yeshua in the world, because it's hard to find truth out there nowadays. Everybody has a platform, especially now with the way that social media is.
Indeed.
And so we just want to be, we want to be the resource that people find truth in. We want to be their answers for biblical questions. We want to be the ones that people call when they have prayer requests, and to build people up and to build your own kingdoms up, your own ministry as well.
That's right. Now, speaking of doing more for next year, you may have noticed when we talked about the calendar earlier, we had these coupons that were in between each of the months. And this month, lo and behold, it was about Passover. And we want to talk to you about Passover just for a second, because we are definitely doing more for Passover this year than last year. And that is so that you can bring your Christian friends to this event and have them be, it's not going to be something foreign to them. This is going to be very, very,
Christian-y.
Well, yeah, I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is that it's going to be very easy to absorb. It's not going to be all kinds of Hebrew and stuff like this. It's going to be very easy to understand, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Go to PassoverCharlotte.com, and you'll be able to see our lineup of speakers there this year. Tickets are going very fast, so, think about it, pray about it, but act quickly if you're going to, because Perry Stone is going to be there. He's a very big name in the Christian world. Also, Joel Richardson. He was here talking about Islam. Very interesting stuff for the end times. Bill Cloud is also going to be here. Chris Knight is going to be here. Of course, Michael and myself and Matthew Hall will be having some speaking sessions too.
Yes. Now, I don't want you to worry. I know that we said the word Christianese and very Christian friendly. We're not going to compromise on any message that we're delivering that weekend. And thankfully, Perry is on board with us. He understands who we are as a ministry. He knows what we believe, and he respects Michael's position on his beliefs. So we're not compromising any of the message. We're using this as a window opportunity to find people who would otherwise not be at our events. Because again, that's our mandate, is to teach the truth and to find the unbelievers. Our mandate's not to go to somebody that understands Torah already and to tell them the message. Our mandate is to go to the unbeliever, the unsaved, the confused, the lost.
Right.
And to lead them to Yeshua. So we're excited about Perry being there with us.
And it's going to be great because you're going to see the temple.
Yes.
It's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun. The temple is going to be there. The pillars in the front that Michael always talks about with the Solomon's temple. You're going to see something very interesting there, and it's going to be a big eye-opener if friends have never heard the story of what was really going on with the temple and what it was built for. It's very Indiana Jones-like, and invite them if they've never heard the story. It's a wonderful thing to see. There's also going to be praise and worship there, which is a brand new thing.
Yes.
We'll also have youth ministry with Chris Knight, including a Friday night social.
Yes, and
fun.
Again, the youth, if you have youth in your family or children in your family, you don't want to miss this event. Their programs are out of this world. I mean, we have people that don't want to leave every single year, youth and children alike. They really get involved in their time together, and it's beautiful to see. I remember last year, one of our staff members, one of our leaders here, walked into the youth program and came out crying.
Really?
Because of just the impact that was being created on the youth. He saw what was happening in that room. I mean, the Holy Spirit was definitely working with them. So we promise you it will be an event for the entire family unlike you've ever been.
Wonderful. Okay, so if you want more information, go to PassoverCharlotte.com, and you'll get more information there all about Passover. Now, coming up in just a few minutes, we've got Dr. Denis Otero, who is going to explain the secret significance of Hanukkah as the key, get this, to recognizing the coming of the anti-Messiah in the book of the Revelation. How does Hanukkah do that? Well, you're about to find out. Now, before we get to that, this is your opportunity to help build bomb shelters in Israel, like we said, with the roses here and all of the other items that we were just describing. So take a look at this, pray about it, and we hope you can support Israel coming up right here.
Every year, an average of 1,000 enemy rockets rain down on Israel. An entire generation of Israeli children has grown up knowing they have just 15 seconds to escape to a bomb shelter once they hear a siren wail. This month, Michael Rood is doing something special for Israeli families caught in this terrible trap, and you can be a part of it. For the month of December, when you give a love gift donation of $100 or more, Michael Rood will send you a pendant in the shape of Israel. This pendant is made from fragments of exploded Qassam rockets that were fired into Israel. Partial proceeds from your love gift will help to build bomb shelters to protect Israeli families from future attacks. You'll also receive an exclusive teaching from Michael Rood called The Manifestations of the Holy Spirit. In this teaching, you will learn how to test the Spirit step by step from both scientific and legal context of the Scriptures.
Sometimes healings are not miracles. They don't happen instantaneously. Other times they do. But every time it does happen, it is a gift.
Your support of just $100 is all it takes to get this teaching and to help protect Israeli families. And if you want your support to have an even greater impact, there's another way. With a one-time love gift donation of $500, you'll receive Michael's teaching, the pendant, plus the commemorative Jerusalem peace coin set in a stone stand carved from the foothills of Jerusalem. And a one-of-a-kind work of art, a stunning sculpture made from Qassam rocket fragments, just like the pendant. Your donation of $500 or more gives you all of these special gifts and sends maximum financial support to build bomb shelters in Israel. But you must act now. This window of opportunity will close December 31st. Call or visit our website to make your love gift donation now, and thank you for standing with Israel and with A Rood Awakening International.
Last week, we introduced Joe Kovacs, who is the executive editor, World Net Daily, or WND.com, as the nomenclature is now. Now you know I'm from a previous generation, but WND.com. And he has written 2 books, Shocked by the Bible, number 2. You are in for a treat, ladies and gentlemen. I can't wait until we get into the whole thing in Shabbat Night Live, because his book is waking people up, and this is literally the end-time revival of which the Bible prophesies. It's not an end-time revival in which every seat in every pew in the church is filled, the offering baskets are overflowing, but it is where the Gentiles come to Israel, take a hold of the tzitzit of the Jew and say, teach us, we know that God is with you. This is a man of great intelligence and great integrity who began his search in the Bible because he had to take a theology course in a prep school, a high school, and as he began to read the Bible, he found out that it is a completely different story, and you have so many chapters in here of just treasures. Tell us, one of the things we're going to get into are the problems in Bible movies.
Yeah, so many movies have been made about the Bible over the years, from the 1950s and onward especially, and some of the most famous movies in history that you think are biblical are not biblical at all, or they have serious biblical problems with it. And unfortunately, people get brainwashed with the error, with the misconceptions, and the misconceptions stick with them, and they don't really learn the Bible. They think they're going to a movie to ostensibly learn about the Bible, whether it's the Ten Commandments or more modern movies, the Nativity Story or Noah, which recently came out. But it's not biblical, and people need to realize you're not getting the Bible when you go to movies that are allegedly or claim to be about a Bible story.
Yeah, this Ten Commandments being one of them. The whole front story is made up. It's a literary license gone wild a little bit, but I really love the movie. Raised my daughters on the movie, and then we get to the big punchline of the movie with the giving of the Ten Commandments, and it's absolutely butchered. It's like 13 chapters boiled down to one half incorrect chapter is what it comes down to. And this is what's lodging in people's minds. They think that this is the Bible story, and they miss the greatest story because it's never told, and never told right.
Right. I don't know why the script writers who wrote the screenplay of the Ten Commandments didn't stick to the original script, because it's a divinely written script.
Right,
it's much better than
you got
they
the
could ever do.
screenwriter, the Almighty,
Exactly.
giving it to Moses.
With a capital S in screenwriter. And you know, you had Cecil B. DeMille coming out even before the film was made and telling the audience, you know, we don't know a lot about the life of Moses in his early years, and so we kind of had to fill in the blanks. And so they made up this love story with Nefertiti that you don't see mentioned in the Bible. And you don't even see the Ten Commandments till the final moments of the movie. And it's just a few seconds of the film, but they have this elaborate story that's fake. It's fake news, which we've talked about before, but people are ingrained with lies. And even Yeshua-loving people who want truth, who might start with a movie because they think, oh, well, I don't need to read the book because the movie is out. They go to these movies with good intentions, and they want to have their children exposed to the movies and a little bit of the Bible. And what they get is a little bit of the Bible, because there's some truth in that movie. They do show the golden calf, and they do show Charlton Heston as Moses coming down the mountain with the Ten Commandments, and he does shatter them on the ground, which is in the Bible, but it's just such a small fraction of the movie that you're missing out on the real script. So I always urge people, when they're going to see a Bible movie, whether it's an old one or one of these new ones that come out, read the story in the Bible first. It's usually only a chapter or two that they make a movie out of. Read that first, then go to the movie, and then come back and read the Bible again, just so you know in your mind what's biblical and what's not. Because once the lie of the movie is stuck in your mind, that's what you remember, and you think that story is biblical. I thought that whole business, the love affair, and the first half of the Ten Commandments was all biblical for years. Because I didn't read my Bible enough. And then you start reading the Bible, it's like, none of this was in the movie. So I just want people to be biblically accurate.
So in your book, you hit on so many of these things that are common knowledge that are complete falsehoods. You must get some flashback from Christians out there who want to defend, you know, that Ann Baxter really got hooked up with Yul Brynner, and so tell us about some of the flashback you might have gotten, and what is shocking people in your book.
I mean, just the simplest facts cause many people to send me emails calling me vicious names. I can't say them on the program here. That's how vicious they are, because they think somehow I'm trying to attack the Bible or attack Christianity when I'm not. I'm a Yeshua worshiper. I believe everything in the Bible is true. I want people to read the Bible and understand it. But they have been brainwashed by so many lies over the years and tricks of the devil that they don't know what's in the Bible. So, for instance, I wrote in the first Shocked by the Bible about Noah's Ark, and simple facts you can find out in a matter of seconds about what's true about Noah's Ark and what's not. For instance, many people think that Noah's Ark landed in a place called Mount Ararat. Mount Ararat, that's got to be in the Bible, right? Because everybody thinks so. And I said in Shocked 1 that nowhere in the Bible does it say that the ark rested upon Mount Ararat. You don't find those words on the page. When you actually bother to crack open any Bible, any translation, I don't care which translation, it will say the ark rested upon the mountains. There's an S
plural.
on the, it's a plural word, the mountains of Ararat. It's like saying the Rocky Mountains.
Literally, Uratu, which was a kingdom at that time.
Correct, and
So-
it's the region it's talking about. If it landed, let's say, in the United States and said in the Rocky Mountains, you would realize it's not talking about necessarily one mountain peak. And so for years, people have been...
good analogy there, in the mountains of the Rocky.
Mountains of the Rockies, right. So it says mountains, plural. So just something as simple as that. And people would email me saying, you are a Bible hater, you hate God. and many worse things than that. You need to just stop. You're part of the lying media. When I'm not, I'm trying to focus them on what's in the Bible.
Right. And this brings us to, the reality of this particular thing is that Mount Ararat itself is a 17,000-foot post-flood volcano that it's erupted many times, and there is one place you could never find it, and that's on something that didn't exist before the flood and at the time of the flood. And yet, people are holding on to it. And every story that's come out from Sun Pictures, and this is back, 40 years ago, Sun Pictures came out with the Noah's Ark on Mount Ararat. And then later it turned out this wood they brought back, that it was all a hoax. Every one of them has been a hoax, and yet people are still being funded and get hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for their research project to find out Mount Ararat. It's all a scam. And the ark has already been found. Hey, we are going to have you in, and we're going to dig into some of these chapters in this book, because there are a lot of people, ladies and gentlemen, a lot of people out there that need to be earnestly challenged to read the Bible. This is now the most biblically illiterate generation that has ever been in America. Nothing like it before has happened. People have been told that it's a fairy tale and that evolution is why we got here, and they don't even read the scriptures to find out. You can't even begin to figure out human civilization without the 10th chapter of the book of Genesis. We are going to dig into things and expose some things. You too are going to be el-shackled by the Biblios. We'll see you for Shabbat Night Live.
Every Passover, we commemorate the Last Supper. But the Last Supper is just the beginning. A Rude Awakening International presents Passover 2018 live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Enjoy an amazing Passover feast and learn what lies ahead in biblical prophecy all weekend long from some of the most well-known teachers of the end times. Keynote speaker, Perry Stone. Biblical prophecy and Islam expert, Joel Richardson. From Shorshim Ministries, Bill Cloud. From Love for Yeshua Ministries, Chris Knight. And your host, the biblical chronologist, Michael Rood. Enjoy praise and worship music, children's ministry, and youth ministry. Plus, take part in the mikvah, the ancient biblical version of baptism, and the heartfelt family ceremony dating back to the Israelites, the redemption of the firstborn. You'll even learn how to make unleavened bread like they do in the Middle East. One ticket gives you all of this, all weekend long. Passover, live in Charlotte, North Carolina. Get tickets now at PassoverCharlotte.com.
The last night that Yeshua was with his disciples, the Last Supper before the Passover was sacrificed, he took bread and he took wine. He said before that Abraham saw his day and rejoiced. But what does that mean? He saw his day and rejoiced. Well, it was the Melchizedek, the king of righteousness, that brought forth bread and wine to Abraham. He blessed the Most High with the blessing that Abraham taught Yitzhak, Yitzhak taught Yaakov, and is still spoken today. Whenever bread and wine is served at a Jewish table, whenever it is Sabbath, especially around the world, the bread and the wine are brought forth with this blessing. Baruch atah Yehovah, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pari hagafen. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, the creator of the fruit of the vine. And Yeshua then said, blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. He said, this represents my body, which will be broken for you. This represents my shed blood that pays the sin penalty because of the broken covenant. As often as we do this, we do this in remembrance of him. So break the bread, share the wine, and we do this in remembrance of him until he comes.
Our first guest this morning is Dr. Denis Otero. Now, if you've never heard of Dr. Denis, I'll give you a little bit of background. Dr. Otero is an associate professor at Trinity Southwest University in Albuquerque, where he teaches Hebrew, Hebraic studies, and Holy Land geography. Professor Otero has studied in Israel with the Jerusalem Center for Biblical Studies and has led many teaching tours to Israel. He has worked on several archaeological digs, including Bethsaida, the Temple Mount, and even Sodom. And he has a passion for imparting his knowledge and experience to others who really want to dig in, pun completely intended, to the scriptures. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Denis Otero.
Dr. Denis, all right.
Thank you. First of all, Shabbat Shalom. And as we close Hanukkah, we want to say a blessed and celebrated Hanukkah that we had this year. It was really a pleasure to come every year as we study Hanukkah and we dig deeper and deeper. Adonai is doing mighty works. And I do want to focus on our screen today. And I want you to see this. Today I'm just giving information. The things that, like Michael, last night, we have so much to say and we have so little precious time. First thing I want you to know that my name is Denis Ismael and my name is Halevi Otero. And Halevi because I am a descendant of Levi and the Halevi family. We've done this through DNA and also through our family genealogy. And so one of the ideas that as I'm learning these things and opening the word of Elohim, it's like I am coming to these places that these are my family. This is our family. And we have one family, and whether we are the natural branches or those that have been grafted in, there's only one family. And we are the family through Yeshua of Elohim. And so I am excited to in a sense, dig into my family background. Now, what is Hanukkah? Hanukkah is the celebration of rededication after defilement. After the altar, after our holy temple was defiled, we had to what? Rededicate it, reset it apart. It's a revolution back to the beginning, and of course the beginning is Torah. Everything is about Torah. And I am blessed with your Torah scrolls here. I brought my family Torah scrolls here. The ones that I have here are 200 years old. I am so blessed by these ones here. And remember, this is what it's all about here for us. This Torah, this word of Elohim. And we want to have a revolution back to this beginning. Now, Hanukkah and Purim, as we know, are not the Moedim, the feast of Yahweh, of Adonai. Leviticus 23, of course, gives us Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, weeks, trumpets, atonement, tabernacles. Purim and Hanukkah are not feasts, they're not Moedim, but they are celebrations of victory over the enemies of our faith. And it's time that we start celebrating. Now, why Hanukkah? Isn't it just a Jewish holiday? Most people that we come across, Christian, even many Messianics say, why Hanukkah? Yeah, that's not the feast. Let's just get to the feast. But one of the things that we're going to look is of the importance of Hanukkah. The importance of Hanukkah for us as believers is because it teaches us the difference between truth and error. The difference between honesty and deception, between the authentic and the counterfeit, between what's holy and what's common. By the way, the opposite of holy is not sin. The opposite of holy is not iniquity. The opposite of holy is the common. And we don't understand that. We need to be and look at the difference between that which is holy. Between the clean, tahor, everybody say tahor, and the unclean, tamai, say tamai. Scriptures uses tahor and tamar, the clean and unclean. By the way, the responsibility of Levitical people is to teach Israel these differences. And these differences are not being taught today. Everything has become a common thing. We need to divide. Yeshua, as was said greatly last night, Yeshua, he came to bring division. And purity is about division. Purity, holiness is about division, separating ourselves from that, even which is common. Hanukkah is about the past, about the present, but Hanukkah is also about the future. Because we're going to study here today about the coming anti-Messiah. We're going to look at how do we identify the anti-Messiah? It's about who the true Messiah is, Yeshua. And it's about the anti-Messiah, that one that will come, and we're going to identify him. Hanukkah is about what I call a radical revolution within the body of Messiah. And what we need today is a radical revolution. Radical means what? To the roots. And we need a revolution, a turnaround in the body of Messiah. We need to teshuvah, back to the beginning, back to Torah. And it's a radical revolution that we need. We need this coming in. We need this complete changing. Becoming a true believer in the authentic gospel. It's not just about wearing kippahs or a talit, or it's not just about changing names, Yehovah, Yeshua, Yahweh. It's not about it's about us. It's about having a radical revolution. With me, I need a radical revolution in my life, and so does everyone out there. We can't understand Hanukkah unless we understand Hamakom. Everybody say Hamakom. It means the place. And the place, of course, is what? The tabernacle in the wilderness. Solomon's temple. Zerubbabel's temple. The temple of Herod. But if you look in the background there, what do you see? You see the garden. And there in the garden, where was the first Hamakom, the first place. To understand Hanukkah, we must understand this idea that there is a place that Adonai wants us to be. And it's a place that we ourselves have not been into for a long time, even as believers. The key to Scripture is Immanuel. And Immanuel means what? Elohim with us. From Adam to the eternal kingdom, it's always been about his presence. How many of you love being in the presence of Adonai? But there's something even better than that. He loves being in your presence. Woo! Emmanuel is not about us going to heaven. It's about heaven coming down to us. And remember, even from the beginning, Adonai did not say, Adam, come here to me so I could fellowship with you in heaven. No, Adonai came here on earth and hand in hand, in Middle Eastern style, hand in hand, Adonai walked with Adam in the cool of the day. That's where he taught Adam. That's where he fellowshiped with Adam. That's where that love relationship, more than us wanting to be in the presence of Adonai, he wants to be in our presence. We are the Hamakom. Our bodies are that temple, as we are going to see. We are not going to live in heaven forever. No, Revelation 21 says what? I saw the new Jerusalem. It came down, and there the throne of Elohim was with man. He's going to be their Elohim, and they're going to be his people. And the name of the place is Elohim with us. Here with us. That's what it's all about, and that's what Hanukkah is. Now, the Hamakom, the temple, the tabernacle, all these places were just models of the presence of Adonai. They're just models. In fact, in Exodus 25, Adonai tells Moshe, make sure you make everything according to the pattern, according to the blueprint. There in Hebrews, it's not as though Messiah entered a man-made sanctuary, but he entered into heaven itself, which this one on earth was what? A model. The one here on earth was just a pattern, a model of the true one. In the presence of Adonai, which is going to come down at the end, and that is going to be here in the new earth. As we look at the temple, and Hanukkah is tied in with temple. As we look at the temple was the most sublime place on earth. The temple was the holiest, the most set apart place on earth. In fact, Solomon taught us that when we pray, we face towards Jerusalem, towards the holy Mikdash, the Mishkan. We come and face into his presence because this was the holiest place. And Hanukkah is about this. Well, there's levels of Hanukkah that we're going to look at, and I'm just going to give you information today. And again, each one of these is something that we could probably spend hours in. But the levels of Hanukkah that I've discovered and that I've seen are 7. Today we're going to look at the Hanukkah's level with its secrets, the prophetic level with its secrets, the historic level with its secrets, the legendary level with its secrets, the messianic level with its secrets, the moral level with its secrets, and the eschatological level with its secrets. All these levels of Hanukkah have secrets. And the first is the meaning of Hanukkah. En español, el nombre es Hanukkah. And here we have the Greek came out, and the Hebrew did not come out. But remember, the Greek Septuagint was translated around 200 before Messiah. And it was translated, here we have Strong's number, and it is pronounced Chanukah, Chanukah. There's all kinds of, a word with all kinds of different pronunciations. But remember, there is not just one Hanukkah. The Hanukkah we celebrate today is the Maccabean Hanukkah. But there are Hanukkahs in the plural. And of course, the first Hanukkah was in the wilderness there, in the book of Numbers. And there we have that first Hanukkah where what Moshe did is they anointed the altar with oil. Now, to anoint with oil is the word Mashiach, where we get the word Moshiach, Messiah. And to set a person, place, or thing apart is to get oil and to pour on it, and it makes it kadosh, it makes it holy. Hanukkah is a synonym of the word for holy, kadosh. And to Hanukkah something is you get oil and pour it on it, and that is Hanukkah. If we could use these words, that person, that rock becomes Hanukkah. And so we see that the temple in the wilderness was Hanukkah. The altar was oils poured on it, and it was set apart. Solomon's temple in 2 Chronicles 7:9, the same thing. And Solomon's temple was Hanukkah, and they poured oil on that altar, and it was set apart. And Zerubbabel's temple also, we see that the same thing happened when Zerubbabel built his little temple. They also Hanukkah did. They poured oil. So Hanukkah is used. In fact, it's used throughout the scriptures. And one of my problems with translators and modern Bibles is that they're not consistent between what they call the Old Testament and the New Testament, the Tanakh, the Hebrew writings, the scriptures, and the apostolic writings. They're not consistent in their translating. And so if we could get the Tanakh and use all the words from the Hebrew and actually put them in the English, we would be amazed that Messiah is everywhere. The church is everywhere, the ecclesia, the kehillah. We'll see that Hanukkah is everywhere. And so the secret of Hanukkah is that it's everywhere in the scriptures. Now, the second secrets of Hanukkah is what I call the prophetic secrets. A lot of people say, well, why Hanukkah? It's not in the Bible. It's not in their Bible. I don't know, but it's in my Bible. But more importantly, one of the things that we need to look at in the prophetic is that in the prophetic, Daniel was a prophet of Elohim. Now, I know in some of the schools that I've been to, when I graduated with a bachelor's in Roman Catholic theology, and my professors told me something that I didn't know before. I always thought that Daniel wrote Daniel. But they told me, oh no, Daniel didn't write Daniel. In fact, Daniel wasn't written till after the events of the Maccabees. So what Daniel did is he actually was writing history, but he said it was prophecy. Bunch of garbage is being taught out there in the Bible schools and seminaries and all these places. Daniel was a prophet of Elohim. And if you want to know about Hanukkah, you go to Daniel. Daniel 4 teaches us what Hanukkah is all about. Not only about the Maccabean Hanukkah, but also the future Hanukkah, because there's 2 more Hanukkahs to go. There are 2 more Hanukkahs, 2 more anointing and blessing of altars. The next Hanukkah, well, that's towards the end. So we have here Daniel. We have here Daniel showing us what Hanukkah is going to be all about. And it's all, here's the, in Daniel 2, the statue, I only put the one of bronze because that's the one that's important for us. The Grecian kingdom. Daniel prophetically tells us about Alexander the Great. He prophetically tells us about Antiochus Epiphanes. He tells us about the future anti-Messiah. So if you want to learn about Hanukkah and even about the future, Daniel is the dictionary. Daniel is the dictionary to learning about anti-Messiah, past, present, and future. You cannot read any language until you study its dictionary. What are their words and how did those words and phrases mean to them? And so here Daniel sees that. We also have another vision, the vision of the four beasts that we talked about, that Michael talked about last night. And in this vision of the four beasts, the leopard is the one that's important for us. And this leopard in 7:6 says, after this I looked, and there was before me another beast, a leopard with four birds' wings in its flanks, and it had 4 heads, and it was granted authority. And of course, it was brought out last night that this 4 beasts, this leopard and these beasts have to do with Alexander and the division of his kingdom into what they called the 4 Didochai. The Didochai were his 4 generals that were given the authority of his kingdom because he died without an error. And so we also see that there was the prophecy of the ram and the he-goat, and how the ram, which was Medo-Persia, and the he-goat, Greece, Alexander and company, and how it came up. And there's a picture right there of the he-goat just coming against the ram. And so Daniel, these scriptures, if we could go into every one of these, we would see that Daniel prophetically gave us a historical account before its time. Now, in Daniel 10 through 13 is a whole section of scripture that has to do specifically with the Seleucid king. Daniel 10 to 13 gives us this idea of who the Seleucid king is. And if you will turn, we're going to spend a little time here in Daniel. If you will go to Daniel chapter 10. And in Daniel 10, he prophetically there tells us about this Seleucid king. Antiochus Epiphanes was a descendant of Seleucus, the general that received Syria. Now, by the way, these are 4 Greek generals. And in the different places, we're going to have a map here in a few slides. In everywhere they went, they brought the Greek way of life. 2 of the generals that we need to know is Seleucus, who took over Syria, and Ptolemy, who took over Egypt. Ptolemy and Cleopatra were not Egyptians. They were Greeks. And yes, they dressed Egyptian, but they were Greeks. And the Greeks had this ability, as many modern people do today in Western civilization, is to go into a culture and take on the forms of that culture, but they bring their philosophy in like a snake, and all of a sudden they steal the minds and the hearts of that generation and that people. That's going on today. And we need to stand up as Maccabees today and fight against that. Well, here in Daniel chapter 10, we have Daniel specifically telling us here that what is going to occur. And he sees a vision of a man dressed in linen, and this man tells him about what is going to come in the future. In Daniel 10, he says there are, in verse 2 and in verse 15, he said, when I prostrated myself to the ground without saying a word, then someone like a son of man, again, remember, Daniel is a dictionary, so when you see this term, son of man, this is a dictionary term for when Yeshua calls himself what? The Son of Man. And so all of a sudden, this messenger came, and he gave him strength. He gave Daniel strength. And he came and he told Daniel about how he should be strong, how he should stand. And in verse 20 says, then he said, do you know why I have come to you? It is to tell you what is written in the book of truth. Now, there is a book of truth. This Torah, there's one in heaven. And what the book of truth is, what the Torah, the instruction, the teaching is, now this man comes and tells Daniel, I must go back and fight against the prince of Persia. And when I have done that, I will come against the prince of Javan. This is what the bronze, the leopard, is all about. And then he says there, and I have, after that, in all this, there is no one to lend me support except Michael. It is whom I rely and give support to refute me. 3 more kings are going to arise in Persia, and a 4th will come, and he will be richer than the others, and he will challenge all these kingdoms. And then in chapter 11, verse 21, in his place will arise a wretch. Now, Antiochus is called the what? The wretch. He will arise a wretch, and he will be given royal honors. He will insinuate himself into them in his own time and gain possession of the kingdom by intrigue. Armies of his will be routed. And so over here, Daniel, this is history. This is why these people today, they can't understand that Daniel here is writing history before its time. He's a prophet. And we need to look at this. In fact, we don't have time like reading the Maccabees. Who hasn't gotten a copy of what's called the Apocrypha, where the Maccabees? You need, as soon as the sun goes down, that's one book that everybody needs to have, Michael. That's one book that everybody needs to have. It's called the Apocrypha. And in a little while, we're going to understand what the word Apocrypha means. But Daniel here is prophetically saying what we're going to find out in the Apocrypha is history. As I just go here, I wish I could just read the whole of 10 and 11. But one of the things that we need to know is here Daniel prophetically tells us about Antiochus. He tells us about the abomination of desolation. And over here he says that forces of this king, he doesn't name him, but everything is there, will come, and they shall profane the sanctuary, even the fortress, and shall take away the continual burnt offering, and they shall set up the abomination that makes desolate. We don't know what abomination is. You know what an abomination is? It's something that makes you sick. Something that makes you sick to your stomach. And today, we see it on television, in movies, commercials. We see all kinds of things that would have made our ancestors sick. Just to see, just to hear the way people talk, just to see the way people dress today. Today, we don't realize it because we see it, but you know that most people that you see today, men and women, are actually dressed in their underwear. According to biblical standards, according to Hellenism and the system of their world. Look at people in the store. And in biblical time, in the time of Daniel, this would be people's underwear. We don't realize how far we've gone. We don't realize how far and how much we have been assimilated into a Hellenistic, anti-messianic culture. But one of the things that we know is that he's going to set up the abomination of desolation. How many of you grow up praying to idols, to statues? And because of that, it's nothing to have idols today in the world. But idolatry is something that makes Adonai sick. Because idolatry is idolatry, and it's adultery. Adultery, how many know what, you farmers out here, adulterated milk is milk from the cow. But then you have to strain it. I remember when we were small, straining the milk from the cow. You get it with, cheesecloth and dew to it. And it's called unadulterated milk. Adulterated milk is milk with specks and foreign particles. Unadulterated milk is milk that all these foreign particles have been taken out, division again. And that's what needs to happen to us. Because one of the things is, the idea of things that make us sick is not there. We've lost that ability. Just to see an idol should make us sick. To see a Buddha should make us sick. To see any idol. Because that's a mixture. And Adonai, from Torah, doesn't like mixtures. Mixtures is not part of us. Even our clothing, our field, no mixture. And he's trying to teach us lessons. These are the dictionaries that we need to start receiving from. There's a reason and a purpose for all those. It's not just for him to be mean. There's purposes and reasons. It should make us sick if we have a man, a husband, a faithful man. And it should make that man and everyone around him sick if all of a sudden, wouldn't it be sick if his wife brings another man to live with them in the house and say, oh, this is, my boyfriend, this is, my lover, and he's going to live with us here. Shouldn't that make us sick? That's a sick thing. That should make us sick. Well, can you imagine Adonai? Adonai is our husband. We are his bride. What right do we have bringing other lovers, other gods, other idols? That would make him sick. That should make us sick. And so an abomination of desolation is doing an act that desolates, not only desecrates, but desolates the Shekhinah glory of Adonai, which makes it leave the temple. At the first Hanukkah, as it was Hanukkah, the presence came. The Shekhinah fell, fire fell from there in the tabernacle in the wilderness and in Solomon's temple, Zerubbabel's temple. The fire fell, the presence of Adonai was in the house. But you bring in the house another lover, and the presence goes, and that husband he should leave and say, you know what, I'm gone. This is no place for me. He cannot accept it. He should not accept it. And neither should we today in the world. And this abomination of desolation came, and what the abomination of desolation, of course, was an idol. Now, the secrets of Hanukkah from a historic level. Now, we already saw them prophetically from Daniel. Daniel prophesied it, and now what we talk about the Maccabean Hanukkah is a fulfillment of that. But before, we need to talk a little bit about the Apocrypha. Now, the Apocrypha, the word Apocrypha means hidden. It doesn't mean bad. It doesn't mean something that is wrong. It just means something that is in the back, something that is hidden, literature that is hidden. Apocrypha literature is hidden literature. Now, it's the literature that was in the back. Remember, everything in biblical times was scrolls. They didn't have books. Books didn't come till the Middle Ages. But they had scrolls, and the Torah was in one scroll. Joshua was in a scroll. First and Second Chronicles was in one scroll. First and Second Kings, one scroll. First and Second Samuel, one scroll. The 12 were in one scroll. And so there was this place, and in the temple, and also later on when synagogues were invented, because remember the synagogue was an invention of the Pharisees right before the time of Yeshua. And they had a place, and there's the Cairo Geniza where they had these books. And they had in one box or in one shelf the scrolls of the Torah and the Tanakh. But there was another box that had other. Now, we don't even do that today ourselves. How many have a shelf and only the Bible, only the scriptures, only the word is there? That no other books. You know, you go to the houses today and you see the Bible, and then you see other books. Well, Apocrypha is these other books. But they would not put the Apocrypha with the Bible. And they would just put it. But did they read the Apocrypha? Yes, they did. Yeshua and the apostles, they all read the Apocrypha because to them, it wasn't something that was, taboo. Apocrypha does not mean taboo. It just means those other books. In fact, today, we have all kinds of other books that we read that we don't consider the word of Elohim, but it is about the word of Elohim. And so when I started, the Bible that I use is called the Jerusalem Bible. And one of the reasons why I use this Bible, there's many reasons, but one of them is because it has the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha is literature that was written, and the reason it wasn't included in the canon is because it was written in Greek. Some had some fanciful stories. Other books of the Apocrypha had, are fiction. Some are Proverbs. Maccabees is history. When you read Maccabees, read it as history. Now, read it as you would read any history. And I'm glad one of the things that you were doing was, because the Apocrypha and the King James wasn't, again, translated exactly. So we need today to go, and in fact, we need people to retranslate it. I love the translation in the Jerusalem Bible. But it's important for us to understand that we need to see these books because the Apocrypha, especially the book of Maccabees, is the historic level for understanding the prophetic level of Daniel. Here we see it fulfilled. What Daniel said happened. A prophet is someone who speaks forth. Of all the prophets, Isaiah, Ezekiel, some of the stuff that they spoke forth happened in the future. Most of it was for their generation and their people. But one of the things that we see here is that when Daniel spoke, most of what Daniel spoke was for the future. But what Daniel did is he was so in tune with Adonai, and these events literally happened at the time of the Maccabees. And the book of Maccabees are two books, 1st and 2nd Maccabees. Now there's also a 3rd and 4th Maccabees, but those 3rd and 4th Maccabees are not even considered Apocrypha. But 1st and 2nd Maccabees. 1st Maccabees is a book from the Maccabean and the Hasmonean people telling the story of what events occurred, and here's where we find Hanukkah. 2nd Maccabees does not follow 1st Maccabees. 2nd Maccabees is another book about the Maccabees, and it's in letter form. The first one is a short letter that they sent to the Jews in Egypt. The second part of Maccabees is another letter that was sent to the Jews living in Egypt. And so 1st and Maccabees don't follow each other, they parallel each other. But the first thing we need to know about 1st Maccabees is that it introduces us to Alexander the Great. Now, I'm not going to belabor that. We spoke about that last night, and Michael's going to probably share some more stuff on it. But Alexander the Great was an apostle of Hellenism. Now, Hellenism has nothing to do with hell, although it has everything to do with hell. Hellenism is the doctrine of Helen of Troy. You know Helen of Troy. She opened the doors for what we call Greek culture. Hellenica, Helen of Troy, is the one that opened the doors, and Alexander the Great became the apostle of Hellenism. He became the first anti-Messiah. Well, one of the first. There's been so many anti-Messiahs, but he was a Messiah, a savior, a deliverer, someone who would bring what he considered truth to the whole world. Of course, he gets his spirit from who? From Nimrod the rebel. Nimrod, it says, he was the first potentate of the world. He was the first one to bring idolatry. You know, we don't find idolatry in the pre-flood world. We see violence. We see all kinds of people doing stuff. And as a result of that, as a result of these Nephilim and all these great famous people of that, all of a sudden the descendants of Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and in the tower we see there the beginnings of idolatry. It was Nimrod who wanted this first world potentate. It was the first potentate. And from there we get who? Tammuz and Semiramis. Here, this is the foundation of every pagan. This is the foundation of everything. And Alexander had the spirit of Nimrod, and he brought it out. So Hellenism is a worldview, and it encompasses everything about life. The civics part, the polis, where we get the word police and politics. The education, the arts. It has to do with the gymnasium, with sports. It has to do with Nike, and it has to do with all these things that are so part of everyday life here in America. I've never been, I never let my kids wear Nike tennis shoes or anything like that. You know, Nike was the goddess of victory. And in fact, Antiochus and Dionysius and all these people, Dionysius was the god that was born also on December 25th. Have you found a list of all the false gods? They were all born on December 25th. That means there's one spirit behind all these manifestations. In fact, you know where you could actually see this? Those of you that are Catholic, in the Catholic Church, you can see a lot of these parallels. But have you noticed that there's only one Mary, right? But they have her in different forms. Like they have her, Our Lady of Lourdes, Our Lady of Fatima, you know, Our Lady of this and Our Lady of that. And people say, oh, I pray to Our Lady of Lourdes. Oh no, pray to Our Lady of Fatima. She really, it's the same person, but the different spirits, different names, but it's the same person, the same demonic spirit. And that's the way it is with all these gods. And Alexander the Great, Dionysius was one of his main gods that he followed. Again, December 25th. And he wanted to bring a world view. He wanted to change the world. He wanted, like Nimrod, a one world government, a new world order. What I hear and see on TV and some of these people, it's the same old garbage. The new age is the same old age. Because again, Hasatan has been that one thread where to every generation, he gives it with a new twist, a new flair. And we get it, hook, line, and sinker, and he has the generation again. Shalom, shalom. Michael?
Well, Dennis, there were so many things that you hit on that, one, hitting the reset button. Hitting the reset button. Now, I think this is an appropriate time at this juncture to read the various last words of Matthias. the old generation, that now he is going to go to be gathered to his fathers, and then it's left up to the next generation in order to carry this thing on. And after the 1,000 were slaughtered without picking up a stone, then Matthias and his friends, when he understood what happened, they mourned for them right sore. And they said one to another, if we do as our brethren have done, and we don't fight for our lives and fight for the Torah against the heathen, we will now quickly be cut down to the roots of the earth. So at that time, they made a decree saying, whosoever shall come to make battle with us on the Sabbath day, we will fight against him, neither will we die, all of us, as our brethren that were murdered in the secret places. And then there came unto them a company of Assyrians who were mighty men of Israel, even all were voluntarily devoted to the Torah. Also, all they that fled for persecution joined themselves to them, and they were a stay, a support to them. So they joined forces and smote the sinful men in their anger and the wicked men in their wrath. But the rest fled to the heathen for succor. So the plumb line went down, the sword went down. Are you going to stand with Israel? Are you going to stand for the Torah? Are you going to keep the commandments? Or are you going to flee into the hands of the heathen? Then Matthias and his friends went round about and pulled down the altars, chopped down the Christmas trees, took the steeples off of the churches, got rid of the Easter eggs and the Easter bunnies. They crucified the Easter bunnies. And whatever children they found within the coast of Israel who were uncircumcised, they circumcised them valiantly. They pursued after the proud men, and the work prospered in their hands. So they recovered the Torah out of the hand of the Gentiles.
Yes. That's what it's all about.
Because the Gentiles and their religious system had taken the Torah, they had defiled it, they had destroyed it. They said, our religion is superior, and they said, you're going to hell. And they sent them to hell, which is the grave. They recovered the Torah out of the hand of the Gentiles, out of the hand of kings, neither suffered they the sinners to triumph. And then Matthias, knowing that he should die, he then said, sons, be zealous for the Torah. Give your lives for the covenant of your fathers. Call to remembrance what acts our fathers did in their time. So shall you receive great honor and an everlasting name. Was not Abraham found faithful in temptation, and it was imputed unto him for righteousness? Joseph, in the time of his distress, kept the commandment and was made Lord of all Egypt. Phinehas, our father, a Levite, a Cohen, in being zealous and fervent, obtained the covenant of an everlasting priesthood. Yeshua, Jesus. Yeshua, it says Jesus in the Apocrypha.
That's the Greek.
Jesus, or Yehoshua, for fulfilling the word that he was made a judge in Israel. Caleb, for bearing witness before the congregation, received the heritage of the land. David, for being merciful, possessed the throne of an everlasting kingdom. Elijah, for being zealous and fervent for the Torah, was taken up into heaven. Ananias, Azariah, Mishael, by believing were saved out of the flame. Daniel, in his innocence, was delivered from the mouth of lions. And consider this throughout all ages, that none that put their trust in the Almighty shall be overcome. This is not Bible school. This is not religion. This is life and death, and these people are going to march out here and go their death, and they're saying it like it is.
Yes. It's boot camp.
They are going to be nothing but worms. They're going to be eaten by the worms. Today he shall be lifted up, and tomorrow he won't be found for dust.
Hallelujah.
His thought is going to come to nothing. His remembrance will vanish. Wherefore, or this is why, my sons, I'm telling you to be valiant and show yourselves men on behalf of the Torah. Woo! For by it you shall obtain glory. And behold, I know that your brother Shimon is a man of counsel. Give ear to him always. He shall be a father unto you. As for Judah, you know, the hammer, he's been mighty and strong even from his youth. Let him be your captain, and fight the battle of the people. Take also unto you all those that observe the Torah and avenge the wrong of your people. Recompense fully the heathen and take heed to the commandments of the Torah. And he died. Ladies and gentlemen, this is why the book of Maccabees is no longer in the King James Version of the Bible. There's no way around it. And I remember when I was over 51 years of age. Now, we're over 60. I guess Arthur's the youngest here among us who are teaching. And then, of course, we got the young ones like my kids that are, you know, Chaim and Kim and all. You know, they're like my kids, and their children are the age of my grandchildren. So, you know, but I remember very distinctly 51, and I said, I now know I'm beginning to understand the gospel of the kingdom. When this thing that I proposed in Nehemiah, and I said, every single Greek text on the planet says the same thing. Then spake Yeshua to the multitude and his disciples, saying, the scribes and Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. Everything that they command you to observe and do, that you do and observe. And I said, there's no way on God's green earth that Yeshua could ever have said those words. And that set him on the track. Since that day, he has found 14 ancient Hebrew manuscripts of the Gospel of Matthew. And what we found is something that the Messianic world does not want to come to grips with, and the Christian world won't even listen to. The scribes and Pharisees sit in Moses' seat, therefore do what he says to do, it says in the Hebrew Matthew.
Yes.
And do not follow the takanot of the Pharisees.
Yes.
Do not. Absolutely, this is the word of Yeshua. This is the last message to Israel. He is going to be dead in less than 2 days. Do not follow the takanot, the laws enacted by the religious system which changes or negates the Torah.
Yes.
Do not follow them.
Yes.
And yet everyone is getting on the Jewish roots bandwagon. And we've got to wake up and be able to separate man-made from religion from the Torah, and Yeshua is the prophet of whom we must obey.
Yes.
Oh, they love the greetings in the marketplace to be called, oh, Rabbi, Rabbi. Don't be called Rabbi. Rabbi means great one. But yet, we have what's called Messianic Jewish congregations calling their leaders Rabbi when Yeshua said, don't call your leaders Rabbi. What part of don't call anyone Rabbi don't you understand? It's like Messianic Rabbi has got to be one of the epitome of oxymorons.
Exactly.
You said don't do it, and yet we're doing it because we want recognition. We want some of the authority. And I'll tell you, to be an Orthodox rabbi, you have got to know the oral Torah down pat. You have spent years, you spent your entire life to get there. You don't go to a Messianic conference and get ordained as a Messianic rabbi after graduating from Baptist Theological Seminary and showing up and saying Yeshua and Messiah once in a while. And that's what most of the Messianic Jewish world is. Yeah. We are raising the bar. When we teach children, we don't teach children like children. We teach them like what they are. They're adults who haven't grown up yet. I was very concerned because this whole trip I knew that Dennis was driving. Dr. Otero was driving from Albuquerque all the way over here. It took him hours and hours longer. And when I saw his smiling face out there in the snowstorm as we were walking to and from our cars, and I knew, okay, this is it. The team is here. Everything is here. And if if half the people don't get here, and that's what's happened, then we still get to broadcast this to the world, and it doesn't matter what happens, we are moving on and fighting like warriors on this.
Amen. Hallelujah.
Now, even as we see that there were some Assyrians who were Israelites, well, I'm going to project something else. See, these are people that followed the hammer. You know, Judah, the hammer. But yet, Hanukkah, we go back and see from the lineage of Levi, Hanukkah. And when Israel came to take the land across the Jordan River, the sons of Hanukkah, they took the land. They took the possession that belonged to them. But now we've got the entire promised land to go in and slaughter the heathen and their bestiality and their sodomy and everything else that's going on, that what made it necessary for the land to get cleaned up. These had to go. That's where that phrase is found.
Yes.
And those Hanukkites then strapped on their sword and said, we are going to fight a battle for the future. We're not going to look at what our champions have done for us in the past. And I would like to submit to you that in this room, we are not those who are under generational curses. Well, there may be some. We are under generational blessings. Woo. So who are we? We are Hanukkites. Hoo-ha! All right, everybody, stand to your feet. We're going to change it. We are Hanukkites. Ready? Who are we? We are Hanukkites. Hoo-ha! Outstanding. Hanukkah warriors, unite.